Okay, so we're back for another deep dive.
Always ready for a deep dive.
You know, it's funny, right? Like, you hear about these big trials,
Uh-huh.
and it's all dramatic testimony and
Right,
verdict.
right.
But there's so much that goes on before that.
Oh, yeah, tons.
This behind-the-scenes stuff. And I feel like we're getting to see that now
Yeah.
with this Bryan Kohberger case.
Absolutely, and there's a hearing coming up.
Right.
That's going to be super important.
And it's like setting the stage
It is.
for the whole trial.
It's like, you're about to bake a cake.
Yeah.
You got to get all your ingredients together first. Right.
Right,
You
yeah.
need your recipe. You need all your measurements.
Mise en place, they call it.
Right. Exactly. So this 2-day hearing
Okay.
is basically like figuring out the recipe.
Yeah.
The ground rules, the final ground rules.
Yeah.
For how this trial is going to go. And, this is a trial a lot of people are watching.
Absolutely. It's huge. And for those who maybe haven't been following every detail,
Yeah.
Bryan Kohberger is accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students.
Right.
Ethan Chapin, Xana Conodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves.
Terrible tragedy.
It happened back in November.
November 13th, 2022. Early morning.
Early morning, and they were found later that day.
Right.
And this was at their rental house in Moscow, Idaho.
Moscow, Idaho, right?
And at the time, Kohberger was actually a grad student.
Yeah, he was studying criminology too, which is
I know, isn't that?
just crazy.
It's like something out of a TV show
I know, you can't make this stuff up.
at Washington State University,
Yeah.
which is really close to Moscow.
Yep. And then he was arrested like weeks later,
Right.
all the way over in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, which just adds to the whole mystery.
Yeah, exactly.
And since then, there have been so many legal documents filed.
Oh, yeah, a ton.
Over 170 from both the prosecution and the defense.
I think it really shows you how much they're fighting over every little detail.
Yeah, it's a lot of back and forth.
It is.
And so this upcoming hearing,
Yeah.
it's really a big deal.
It is.
Because this is where both sides will argue about what evidence the jury should be allowed to hear.
Exactly. It's all about what's fair, what's admissible in court,
Right.
and what's really going to help the jury understand the case,
Because you don't want to just throw everything at them.
Yeah, you got to be strategic, you got to have a story, and you got to present the evidence that supports that story.
Right. And Judge Steven Hippler, he's the one who's going to be making those calls.
He's the referee. He's
Yeah.
going to decide which pieces of the puzzle get to be part of the picture for the jury.
So, okay, let's get into the specifics here.
Okay, let's do it.
This hearing basically comes down to what evidence is going to be presented to the jury, right?
That's the big question.
That's the heart of it.
Yeah. The prosecution has their case, and the defense is trying to poke holes in it.
Right.
They're trying to keep out anything they think is weak or unfair or just doesn't meet the rules of evidence.
Okay, so one of the big things that's being debated
Yes.
is Kohberger's online shopping,
Huh?
particularly his Amazon data.
Right. The prosecution is saying that he used his Amazon account to buy a Kabar knife.
Okay, a Kabar knife.
You know, the one with the sheath and the sharpener?
Okay,
And they think that's the kind of weapon that was used in the murders.
right.
And they want to show his click history, like all the stuff he was looking at on Amazon,
Oh, wow.
to try to prove that he was interested in this type of knife.
But isn't that a little iffy? Like, just because you click on something doesn't mean you buy it.
That's what the defense is arguing.
Right.
They're saying, hold on, these algorithms, they recommend stuff to you all the time
Right.
based on, what you've looked at before or what other people have bought.
Right.
So just because a Kabar knife popped up as a suggestion doesn't mean Kohberger actually went through with it.
Right.
And even if he did buy it, it doesn't necessarily mean he used it for something terrible.
Exactly. So the defense is basically saying, we need more than just clicks.
Right.
We need real evidence to connect him to the crime.
Exactly. And this gets to a bigger issue, too.
Okay. Which is, how do we use all this digital data that's out there?
Right.
Our online activity
Right.
in a way that's fair and reliable in court.
Because it's not like a fingerprint or DNA.
No, it's way more open to interpretation.
And to add another layer to this whole knife situation.
Yes.
They never actually found a Kabar knife,
Right.
but they did find a sheath.
A sheath that would fit a Kobar knife
Right. And this was next to one of the victims.
at the crime scene.
So that's a pretty big deal for the prosecution.
Oh, absolutely. It puts something that could belong to Kohberger right there at the scene.
Right.
But the defense is saying, hold on.
Yeah.
What if that sheath was planted?
Planted. Like someone put it there on purpose.
Exactly. They're suggesting that someone might have wanted to frame Kohberger.
Wow. That's a serious accusation.
It is, and it shows how much is at stake here.
And how far they're willing to go to defend him.
Exactly. They're not just going to let the prosecution walk all over them.
Right.
They're going to fight for every inch. And it's not just about physical evidence, right?
No.
Like the knife sheath or digital evidence like the Amazon stuff.
Uh-huh.
There's also witness testimony.
Right, and the defense is trying to exclude some of that, too.
Really?
Yeah, specifically, they want to keep out the testimony of one of the surviving roommates.
Oh, wow. So there were other people in the house.
Yeah, 2 other roommates who weren't hurt,
Okay.
and one of them reported seeing a masked man inside the house on the night of the murders.
Oh, wow. So what did this man look like?
Well, the roommate described him as having bushy eyebrows,
Okay.
and that's the part that the defense is worried about.
Why? Because it might not have been Kohberger.
Well, that's part of it, but they're also worried about how this description might influence the jury.
Okay.
Even if it's not a perfect match to Kohberger, they're afraid that the jury might latch onto this image.
Have the bushy eyebrows.
Yeah, and let it color their whole perception of the case.
So the defense is basically saying this testimony is too prejudicial.
Exactly. They're saying it could make the jury biased against Kohberger.
Even if there's no solid proof that it was actually him.
Right. They want the jury to focus on hard evidence,
Okay.
not on fleeting observations or things that could be misinterpreted.
I see.
Because memories can be unreliable, especially in a high-stress situation like this.
Makes sense. Now, on the other side, the prosecution has their own evidence that they're fighting to get in.
Oh, yeah, they're not just sitting back.
Okay, what?
Well, one thing is a photo that Kohberger took of himself.
A selfie.
Not exactly. It's just a photo, but it was taken just hours after the murder.
Oh, wow. So why is that important?
Well, the prosecution wants to show what he looked like at that time.
Okay.
Maybe to corroborate a witness statement or to counter any arguments the defense might make.
Right.
About his appearance or his demeanor or whatever.
Okay, so it's all about building a timeline.
Yes.
And showing where Kohberger was and what he was doing.
Exactly. They're trying to put together a puzzle.
Okay. And what about the 911 call?
Oh, yeah, that's another piece of evidence that's being debated.
So this call was made by the other roommates.
Yeah, the 2 who survived.
Okay.
They called 911 about 8 hours after the killings when they realized that one of their friends wasn't waking up.
Oh my gosh, that must have been terrifying.
Absolutely.
So what does the defense have to say about that?
Well, they might argue that the emotional impact of the call is too strong.
Right.
That it could overwhelm the jury and make them focus on their feelings rather than the facts.
Well, they're worried about it being too prejudicial.
Exactly. They might also raise technicalities about the call.
Like what?
Like whether the statements made in the call are actually admissible as evidence.
Okay, so it's kind of a tug of war.
It is.
The prosecution wants to show the full picture.
Yeah, they want the jury to understand the gravity of what happened.
The human cost.
Right. But the defense is focused on making sure that their client is judged fairly,
Okay.
based on solid evidence and not on emotions.
And then there's the issue of the death penalty.
Right. Kohberger's defense has brought up the question of whether an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis
Okay.
would make him ineligible for the death penalty.
Oh, wow. So they're saying that his mental state should be a factor.
Exactly. They're saying that if he has autism, it could affect his culpability,
Okay.
and that the court should take that into consideration when deciding on a punishment.
So it's not just about whether he did it.
No.
It's about the extent to which he's responsible.
Right. And what kind of punishment is appropriate given his mental state.
And then there's the whole jury selection process.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other can of worms.
Because you want to make sure that you have a fair and impartial jury.
Exactly. And both sides have submitted their own questionnaires.
Questionnaires for potential jurors.
Yeah, to try to weed out people who might be biased.
Oh, wow. And those are secret.
Yeah, they've been sealed.
So we don't know what kind of questions they're asking.
Not yet. Maybe we'll find out later.
But it shows you how much effort they're putting into picking the right people.
Absolutely. They want a jury that's going to see things their way.
So Judge Hippler has a lot to think about
He does.
with all these arguments and requests.
And he's got a couple of options.
Okay, what are they?
Well, he could rule from the bench.
Which means?
He makes his decisions right there on the spot.
Oh, wow.
Or he could take some time and issue written rulings later.
Okay.
And in a case this complex,
Yeah.
written rulings are probably a good idea
Why?
because it creates a clear record of his reasoning,
Oh, I see.
which is important for appeals and stuff like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the timeline looking like?
Well, jury selection is supposed to start at the end of July,
Okay.
and the trial itself is set to begin in August,
Oh, I guess.
and it's expected to last a while,
How long?
maybe 3 months.
3 months? Wow.
Yeah, so we're looking at a verdict sometime in November.
So this is going to be a long process.
It is. These complex cases, they take time.
So to sum it all up, this upcoming hearing,
Yeah.
really
It
crucial.
is.
Because it's setting the stage for the whole trial.
Exactly.
It's where they're going to decide what evidence the jury can hear.
Right.
From the online shopping and the self-taken photo to the witness statements and the 911 call.
And we're going to talk about the death penalty and how they're going to pick the jury.
It's a lot.
It is.
But it's so fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
I agree.
Because it really gives you a glimpse into how our legal system works.
Yeah, all the strategy and the legal maneuvering.
And the human element, too.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
this is about real people.
It is.
And a terrible tragedy.
Right, and it makes you think,
About what?
well, with all this different evidence,
Yeah.
you know, digital footprints and memories and scientific findings,
Right.
how do we make sure that the jury gets a clear and unbiased picture of what happened?
That's the big question.
It is, and it's something we're all going to be grappling with as this case moves forward.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for breaking it all down.
Anytime. It's always good to talk about this stuff.
And we'll be following this case closely.
Of course, every step of the way.
And we'll keep you updated on all the latest developments.
So stay tuned.
And until next time,
Stay curious.
and keep on diving.
deep diving.
Deep diving.
That's right.
All right. We'll see you soon.
See ya.